chosen for our festival, but we do have more and more folks joining us at all sorts of different times during the day. So if you want to bag your seat, put a bag on it when you go out for any of your breaks. So my name is Kerry Hallard. I'm the Chief Exec of the Global Sourcing Association. We have an absolutely action-packed agenda. We are following very much a sort of dynamic presentation approach. So Shivani is going to be, she feels really awkward about this, but I said it's good and it's the right way to do it. She's going to be alarm monitor. So speakers have got very precise 10-minute slots before the alarm sounds, and then actually they will be moved off the stage, or at least be asked to stop talking and move into the questions. So we are hoping this is an intimate and fully interactive event. Want as many questions as possible and keep it really sort of like dynamic. So, so without further ado, I'm going to actually kick off with a video that kind of explains a little bit about why we are here and what we're aiming to achieve with today's Festival of Sourcing. So over to you, Richard.
Years left to end poverty and hunger, to halve global emissions. It didn't start out as planned. We're not moving in the right direction. Years of progress lost in the pandemic. Escalating conflicts, climate breakdown. So where are we now? For decades, we successfully fought poverty. Now it's on the rise, again. 1 out of 10 suffer from hunger, more people than ever forced out of their homes. Climate disasters increasing. Droughts alone estimated to displace 700 million people by 2030. This year, CO2 emissions hit a new record. At this rate, annual emissions will be 14% higher in 2030. Meanwhile, fossil energy receives $700 billion in subsidies from governments. Safe water and sanitation not made accessible fast enough. Progress must quadruple to cover all people by 2030. Women are held back at all levels. At this pace, by 2030, 825 million children won't have secondary level education. Human rights, health, and equality all hurt in the wake of war and disaster. Disrupted economies, food and energy crisis, and galloping costs of living damage global solidarity. Everything interconnected. Everyone intertwined. Business as usual won't cut it. Even though we made progress before, going back to pre-pandemic ways is not enough. We need a new paradigm built on the pillars of our 17 goals. Rethink conventions, flip the orthodoxies. Governments, organizations, corporations, citizens of the world, snap out of it. It's time for bold climate action. To act for women and girls, for social justice and inclusion. Scale up the transition to renewable energy. Create 85 million green jobs. Phase out fossil fuel subsidies and tax carbon. $2.8 trillion. Keep your promises. Support developing nations. Write off debts. Free up $1 trillion for climate resilience, people and communities. $500 billion for Africa to achieve universal energy access by 2030. Commit to a circular economy now. New resilient food systems that can cut waste by 17%. Strengthen domestic financial institutions. Make insurance and banking accessible to everyone. Scale up the digital transformation to educate the 1.6 billion kids who missed school in the pandemic. Educate girls, including the 150 million not in school now. Ensure women's equal share of decision-making. Eliminate discrimination against female workers and boost productivity by 40%. We cannot afford to leave anyone behind. We have a to-do list. We have the resources. 8 years to reach our goals. We're on this planet together. So let's work together. Let's get the list done.
Okay, I'm sure you've all seen many videos like that, and as you can see, that actually dates back to 2 years. But the progress that we're making, we all know, is nowhere near good enough. And today's agenda really is looking at what we as an industry can do to actually work together and make a difference and start making some significant inroads to the UN's SDGs. So let me move on. We've had that one. So yes, today we are absolutely delighted to, at last, we have been teasing you about it for a little while, at last delighted to be officially launching FORMIGA. FORMIGA stands for the Formation of the Industry for Good Alliance. This is a joint venture between the GSA in the UK and the IAOP in the US. So I'm now going to, she couldn't be with me today, but I'm now going to hand over to Debi Hamil, who is the Chief Exec of the IAOP.
Hello everyone, and greetings from Orlando, Florida. I really wish I could be with you today, but I am there in spirit. When Kerry first asked me to send a video in my lovely American accent, I did. Not only in my lovely American accent, but in my native New York accent. That is not the one that's going to be played right now. That is the one that you listen to after a few cocktails. But I'm very excited to just share just a few thoughts with you before you get started on this really important day and the official launch of FORMIGA. And the Industry for Good Alliance is so critical to everything around our industry. And so we're here today, or everyone else is here today, to take you through that. So I'm not going to go over all those steps because you're with the experts. My dear friend Kerry Hallard is the architect of all of this. And Alistair Meter, who has put together this service provider sustainability index like no one else could. So thank you so much. And I'd like to do a little shout out here for Dan Lang at Sutherland and for his amazing support, the entire Sutherland team. Dan is my chief advisor of all things social impact. I don't know if you're there, Dan, but if you are, I really wish you'd stand up and take a bow. So I really just wanted to talk a couple of minutes about how this all came about. When Kerry reached out to me at the height of the pandemic about her idea to create the Global Technology and Business Services Council, I said yes, and we dove right in with many other wonderful members, 12 global associations altogether. But it was very quickly that Kerry and I realized we had a lot in common, and the things that were near and dear to our hearts, everything around impact sourcing and diversity, and how we could make our industry better, how we could be a real industry for good. That's really what brought us together. And so she had been working so much on sustainability, and we had developed IAOP's Center for Social Impact. So it was a great platform for both of us to work together. So you're going to learn a lot today, and I hope that you will come along on our journey and become part of our colony. I will explain that, and then we will FORMIGA later on, I'm sure. So I hope I'll see you all soon in person. Please have a great time. Thanks so much, Kerry. See you soon.
She's so lovely. And we have got a very funny video, which I will play at the end of the day, of Debbie doing it in her native New York accent. So, right, so what I want to do is make this a little bit interactive to start off with, and that is, how is our industry responding to the crisis that we are facing, both in terms of the people crisis as well as the environmental crisis? So anybody willing to sort of like give a view as to how well we're responding as an industry, or any tidbits of what their companies are doing? TCS, I'm going to pick on you because I just had a little chat with you. Come on.
So from a sustainability perspective, ESG perspective, we have internally ourselves developed a lot of solutions. Our entire centers, which are in India and across the globe, they run on a solution called level energy that was developed in-house for our own benefit. Now we are taking out of the market. And similarly, in the last few years, we have developed a lot of our sustainability solutions. We are partnering. We are taking those solutions to the market. And as probably you or David said earlier, the judge is still far away. We are still on the path out there. Scope 1, Scope 2 is here, and now Scope 3 is later. And there are things besides that also. So I think it's an evolution of what we are trying to do here in sustainability. Within the UK perspective, we have created a specific practice around sustainability so that we can gather all these things around together into one umbrella.
Yeah, and I think you're being quite discreet there, because I know TCS has a fantastic philanthropic program that has really made the difference to thousands upon thousands of lives. So anybody else, do you think we as an industry are doing pretty well? Hands up if you think we're doing well. Hands up if you think we're doing badly. That's a really bad one. Hands up if you think we're doing well. I think we're doing really well as an industry, to be quite honest. So if we actually look at what we as an industry are doing, we have, everybody used to call it offshoring. Everybody absolutely hated it, but the reality today is that we actually have created millions of meaningful jobs all around the world that have brought absolutely millions of families out of poverty, and we continue to do that every single year. So there's a great focus, and Shadow Careers is just one example, on impact sourcing, where a lot of our service providers, if they don't already have an allocation for a certain percentage of their employees to be impact workers, there are service providers that are completely dedicated on purely offering impact workers as part of their service provision programs. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Chancery Lane project, but it is a collaboration of lawyers who are giving their time free of charge. Wait for it. Lawyers giving their time free of charge. Sorry, Mark, you often give your time free of charge to the GSA, so appreciate that. To develop sustainability clauses that can go into contracts for absolutely everybody to use. So that's phenomenal. And then there's the Clinton Global Initiative, and Everest Research have committed to there being 500,000 impact source of jobs created by 2027, and I think they're only 30,000 short of their target at the moment. So yes, we are doing incredibly well as an industry, and I think we're performing incredibly well environmentally, but specifically socially on a global stage. But I think obviously we can do better. So this is just a little teaser. I don't know whether you can see that. Yes. It did have a voiceover on it, but that's disappeared, never mind. But clearly that is a group of ants working together that are absolutely really, really tiny, moving something monumental. And that really brings me on to what we're going to be discussing with FORMIGA shortly. But without further ado, I'd like to now hand over. Unfortunately, he can't be with us. I think climate reasons and budget reasons, difficult to travel these days, but I'd like to now hand over to Graeme Matheson, who's GSA Council member and performance lead at John Lewis Partnership, to give us the buyer's perspective on all of this.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to be part of what I'm sure will be a very informative, engaging and fun-packed day at the Global Sourcing Association's Festival of Sourcing. I'm very sorry I can't be with you today in person, but I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about some issues that are very close to my heart and something I think that we as buyers and suppliers should all consider as our industry continues to evolve and customer expectations change. The days of contracting out our mess for less and making procurement decisions based solely on labour arbitrage are thankfully behind us. Customers now care more about the ethics and sourcing of goods and services, and we must become more aware of the cultural context in which our work is located. What's our role as buyers? Is it purely to deliver cost-effective outcomes, or is it to drive a strategy that balances commercial requirements with ethical considerations? Does this mean that the cheapest option isn't always the best? In many cases, yes. As responsible buyers and suppliers, we must consider in detail what we're looking to achieve and identify geographies and suppliers that align with our goals. We should ask ourselves, where is the best location for our sourcing and why is it the best? Does it culturally align with the UK or your country of service? Do the staff performing the work feel able to genuinely be themselves and express their beliefs and standards as freely as our customers can? If not, how can they genuinely engage with our customers? We must consider how we would respond if our customers challenged us about delivering work from regions that do not provide the same rights and protections as they experience at home. If those conditions are lacking, how can we bring our influence to bear? Can we make deliberate decisions to avoid sourcing from those regions, or should we play a part in driving change there? In any case, we must take on the responsibility to lead from the front, collaborating with suppliers and the regions we source from, recognising that creating genuine change and impact requires more than just lip service. It's about contracting for it and engaging with staff and their communities. As buyers, our decisions have far-reaching impacts beyond the immediate cost savings. They affect the livelihoods of people, the sustainability of practices, and the ethical landscape of global business. We need to redefine what value means in our industry. It's not just about the bottom line, it's about creating a positive impact on society and the environment. Let's delve deeper into some specific areas where we can make a difference. Ethical sourcing. We must prioritise suppliers who adhere to ethical labour practices. This means ensuring fair wages, safe working conditions and respect for workers' rights. By doing so, we support businesses that contribute positively to their communities. Secondly, environmental sustainability. Environmental impact should be a key consideration in our sourcing decisions. We need to work with suppliers who are committed to sustainable practices, such as reducing carbon footprints, minimising waste, and using renewable resources. This helps in building a more sustainable future for our planet. Thirdly, cultural alignment. It's important that the cultural values of the suppliers align with those of our own organisations and our customers. This ensures smoother collaboration and better service delivery. We should look for suppliers who foster inclusive and diverse workplaces, where employees can be their true selves. Next is community engagement. Engaging with local communities where our suppliers operate can lead to mutual benefits. We should encourage suppliers to invest in local education, healthcare and infrastructure. This not only improves the quality of life for their employees, but also strengthens the supplier's position in the community. And lastly, long-term partnerships. Instead of focusing on short-term gains, we should aim to build long-term partnerships with suppliers. This involves transparent communication, mutual respect, and shared goals. Long-term relationships lead to better quality, reliability, and innovation. Now let's think about what we can do practically to implement those principles. Supplier audits. Regularly auditing suppliers for compliance with ethical and environmental standards is crucial. That helps us ensure that they are adhering to the commitments they have made and allows us to address any issues proactively. Secondly, contractual agreements. We should include specific clauses in our contracts that mandate adherence to ethical and environmental standards. This makes our expectations clear from the outset and provides a legal basis for action if standards aren't met. We should consider making impact sourcing a contractual obligation rather than a throwaway line we include in exec papers. Thirdly, education and training. Providing education and training for both our own teams and our suppliers on the importance of ethical sourcing and sustainability can drive a better understanding and implementation of these principles. Next, collaboration with industry peers. Working with other organisations in our industry to set and uphold standards can amplify our impact. By collaborating, we can create a unified front that drives industry-wide change. And lastly, transparency in reporting. Be transparent about our sourcing practices and progress towards our ethical and sustainability goals builds trust with our customers and stakeholders. Regular reporting on these efforts holds us accountable and demonstrates our commitment to making a positive impact. In conclusion, the role of buyers and suppliers in today's world goes beyond traditional procurement. We have the power and responsibility to drive change, foster ethical practices, and create a positive impact in society and the environment. We must engage in the debate, take decisive action, and lead by example. Let's ask ourselves, what do we want to be famous for? Delivering savings or creating a legacy of diversity, great service, enriching employee experiences, and facilitating meaningful change. Finally, I'm honoured to be asked to serve as the UK lead for FORMIGA for the GSA, and I look forward to discussing this subject with you all more and more in the future. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Well, if he was in the room, I'm sure that would deserve a standing ovation. Yes. So Graeme and John Lewis Partnership are absolutely practicing what they preach. So Gary, you probably know this case study much better than I do, but John Lewis recently outsourced a lot of their customer service estate. And Graeme's story of their approach was he actually took his daughter's map of the world and he put a pin on every potential BPO destination that John Lewis could outsource to. And then he applied an ESG lens to each of those delivery destinations. And he said he was absolutely amazed how few delivery destinations they could actually feel that they could put their brand into, because these delivery destinations had either oppressive regimes or they didn't let people be their true, authentic selves, which is something that I think John Lewis really puts its brand by. So Gary, any build on that you'd like to say about that particular?
Yes, I wasn't involved in that particular case. It's great to hear Graeme talking about that, because one of the things I was in the partnership was putting in standards and processes and putting our ESG standard into place. So got great people working in the partnership like Graeme who really uphold the values of the partnership, but there's still a pressure for
Cost.
Yeah. So I think obviously Graeme's been an advocate for doing the right thing in impact sourcing for some time in the GSA. But getting the standards in place is really important, because then that means that that's across the whole of the organisation. And so we've embedded all things that Graeme's talking about in every procurement activity that happens across the partnership, in sourcing, contracting and supply relations.
Yeah.
Quite proud to hear Graeme say that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fabulous. It's a great example, and I'm absolutely delighted that Graeme has agreed to be the UK lead representative for FORMIGA. He is being joined by other really great brands. So between IAOP and GSA, our Global Advisory Council consists of Meta, Zurich, Aviva, Igon, Transamerica, and Microsoft, and John Lewis Partnership. So we've got really big buy-side brands now joining this movement and making a really strong call to action that we now need to use our commercial spend to create a real difference. So really excited about that. So that leads us on to FORMIGA and the launch for An Industry for Good. So I've already played the little clip of the ants, and I've already, Debbie's already alluded to our colony, and I think some people already know the story, but FORMIGA is a collaboration between the IAOP and the GSA. We are completely focused on building together global sustainable sourcing best practices so that we can give and arm buyers and service providers with all the best practices that enables them to buy in a sustainable way, and for service providers to understand how to actually deliver in a more sustainable way. And we'll come on to some of those in a minute. But why FORMIGA? So it's quite an interesting little story. Well, I think it's interesting. In a previous life, I ran a PR company, and it was called Buffalo. And it was called Buffalo because market research showed that people remembered the names of animals more than anything else. And this was at a time when companies were being called acronyms of people's, initials and things like that. And Buffalo worked really, really well for us. So we applied it when coming up with this new joint venture of what animal most resembles the global technology and business services industry. And ChatGPT responded and said it's the ant, because the ant is really collaborative, it's really agile, really flexible, very strong, works really, really well together, but is also really adaptive to its forever changing environment, just like the global technology and business services industry. So I thought, right, ant, that's good, that works fairly well. But then the word ant wasn't that inspiring, and quite a lot of people have got ant in their name anyway. So we then put it into Google Translate, and basically, FORMIGA is ant in which language? You already know that, yeah. Yes. So ant is Portuguese. FORMIGA is ant in Portuguese. And when that came up through Google Translate, and we knew that we were forming the Industry for Good Alliance, it was just like, wow, that is absolutely perfect. So the joint venture is to be called FORMIGA, and it's a name that is going to ring everywhere, hopefully very, very soon. So we are going to be focused on developing all the new best practices that we believe we as a community need to drive sustainable sourcing. And when we talk to the sustainable sourcing agenda, we're not just talking environment. We're talking about using strategic sourcing to build sustainability across the board. So that includes to build business resilience, to help our clients, mitigate risk. So under our umbrella of sustainable sourcing, we've got a programme of work that looks at agile sourcing. We'll be coming on to that today because we absolutely believe that agile is a cost-efficient and usually a more effective and performance-rich way of actually engaging service providers. So we're developing some guidelines, and we'll have a best practice guide coming out soon on agile sourcing. Obviously, we've got impact sourcing. We've already been developing some work on that. We've got supplier diversity, hugely important subject that the UK is miles behind the US on. So we will be working with our American colleagues to understand the journey they've been on, what we can do to leapfrog and actually hopefully end up ahead of the US in our supplier diversity programs. The standardisation revolution will be coming on to shortly, but that's a really important piece of the puzzle. We have got to stop reinventing wheels. If we work together and collaborate, we can do so much more good, and so much more good quickly. So this whole ESG thing should not be seen as being a pure play competitive advantage. It should be seen as an opportunity for our industry, the industry of global technology and business services, to be positioned as being at the avant-garde of the ESG agenda, to be a leader on all things ESG on the global stage, so that other industries look up to us and learn from us, and that we collectively can make those changes. Technology, of course, absolutely imperative. Technology is driving all of the change, but we have to ensure that the adoption of technology is ethical, and a specific lens at the moment on the ethical adoption of AI, which we'll be coming on to today. So I just wanted to give a broad overview of the best practice that we're going to be working on and developing to support a sustainable sourcing agenda. So you understand how it works. A lot of the work's being done in the UK, a lot of work's being done in the US, but we are coming together to globally ratify those best practices and to roll them out to delivery destinations all around the world. So I meet with Debi every single week. So it's a proper joint venture initiative of the US and UK coming together for global standards. And there's so much in it. Not very good at clicking this forward, am I? There's so much in it that is beneficial for all those involved. So what we're trying to do for the buy side is to, and we'll come on to this in a minute with Alistair, to really get them to assess the ESG performance across their service provider community. And we're already seeing a lot of our buy-side members start redlining those service providers that are not responding well or are not responding at all, are not delivering well to the ESG agenda. As you heard Graeme say, we really are encouraging ethical sourcing, impact sourcing, paying the living wage. It's a really important part of the impact sourcing agenda. Impact sourcing isn't about accessing cheap labour. It's about investing in communities to grow those communities and change livelihoods. And supply diversity. And then for the service providers, it's to really start sharing the best practices of what different organisations are doing. CGI have got a great net zero programme to be net zero all around the world by 2030. So I think that's one of the few service providers that is actually committing to do that globally in every destination. You deliver a lot from India, Latin America, all around the world, yeah. So we need to be sharing those best practices and driving those changes together. So the work of FORMIGA is we're going to be the only global assessment and accreditation body for sustainable sourcing. We're going to be defining the best practices. We're going to be assessing performance. We're then going to audit performance. So we will be a full accreditation body for sustainable sourcing best practice. We'll be advising organisations what they need to do to achieve our standards and to improve. And then obviously we will be accrediting organisations all around the world. And our ambition is absolutely that this is going to go fully global. Debi mentioned the work that we're doing across the Global Technology and Business Services Council. We are working, and Maya's here from IBES representing Bulgaria. And Rajiv is here from SLASCOM representing Sri Lanka. We are working to roll these best practices out absolutely globally. So just to give an overview of some of the work that we've done, define piece. We've been defining what impact sourcing actually means. So we've got a clear definition that we agree with now globally. We've got guiding principles that we now agree with globally. We are now going to be working on a new global standard for impact sourcing. So that's work in progress. When it comes to assessment, we're going to be coming on to this shortly with the work that we've been doing with the Service Provider Sustainability Index. But we're making it really, really easy for all of the organisations to understand how well they're performing against any of our sustainable sourcing best practices. So we'll be coming on to that with Alistair next on our Service Provider Sustainability Index, which we have already launched and we've already got a great case study running against. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of our direction of travel, our intent, the programme of work, which is massive, that we are planning on rolling out. And all I can really say is we really need everybody to be part of this journey. Everybody in this room needs to want to make that difference and be part of it. So if you are a member of the GSA, you are automatically a member of FORMIGA. If you're a member of the IAOP, you are automatically a member of FORMIGA. If you're not a member of either association, you need to get on board and become a member of FORMIGA so that we can actually drive some really meaningful change and put our industry at the forefront of all things ESG. So that's all I wanted to say for now. But I'd like to invite Alistair Niederer to the stage, and we'll be talking about the fantastic work we've already done under the FORMIGA umbrella for our Service Provider Sustainability Index.